Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Hello and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast, where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and psychotherapist. My name's Tess Brigham, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm here with my sister Brooke.
Hi, this is Brooke Brigham, and I'm the attorney.
You're very formal. So for our very first episode, we are talking about the Kardashians. So I want to say before this, I had been very proud of myself. I had spent my entire life, even though I love pop culture, I had never seen a Kardashian episode from beginning to end. Wow. I had seen clips. I had seen, I'd heard people talk about the Kardashians, but I had never really sat down and done any kind of deep dive, any kind of digging in. I always had my thoughts and feelings about them, and it's hard not to, in the world that we live in with them, it's hard not to pay attention to what they're doing and what's happening. But I had never really sat down, and we're going to be talking about the first season of the new show, The Kardashians, on Hulu. I'm well aware that they've had 20 plus years on the E! Network.
And I will say too, I have dipped in and out of the Kardashians for many years. So I am not an expert or a super fan.
Yes.
So it will probably get some things wrong.
A lot of things are going to be wrong. So please,
we're trying.
Don't come at us. Because we don't know every fact and figure of this entire family. But that's why we really wanted to talk about the first season. And then now that the new season's coming out, we're going to talk about that as well. But I have to say that when I was watching the first season, I sent you a text, Brooke, and I said, God damn it, I think I like the Kardashians, and I hate myself for it. But they're very, I'm telling you,
they're compelling.
They are a compelling family.
They
and
are.
People, you want to hate them, you really want to hate them, you want to root against them, but by the end, you're just like, yes, I love these people. You're so invested. And
well, they are. They're a fascinating family, and as I learned from studying them through Google, they have a history.
Yes,
and we're going to be talking more about that. But yeah, they are very interesting.
Yeah. So from a therapist perspective, this family is what we call enmeshed. But I think that anybody with you don't need a degree to have figured that one out by any means, but they are an incredibly enmeshed family where everybody knows everything and everybody's in everybody's business, and everyone has this, it's this interesting thing where everyone has the right to be in everybody else's business. No one ever, they might get mad at each other and be like, you pay attention to you, and you that kind of thing. But for the most part, what they do and what they say and what the other person does and says, all of it's all interconnected. And it was interesting because I thought that with the Khloe stuff and Tristan and because they're so famous, right, when you watch the show, all of these things have already happened, right? They're showing you Kim on SNL. Well, the SNL, everyone's already watched that SNL, right? So we all knew what was going to happen with poor Khloe and Tristan.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
That was very hard to watch. And it was interesting because Kim is, looking directly into the camera being like, if you're the haters that are going to say something about my sister and how dare you and all of that. I was like, yeah, it's this family. They're a little bit like the mafia and mob. It's, you know,
they stick together.
They stick together, and, you know, they're going to be number one for each other, even if they're yelling and screaming at each other. So in terms of enmeshed families, it's somewhat healthy as enmeshed families go.
Well, they definitely, you know, there's also definitely a lot of love there.
Oh, yeah.
Love and support and loyalty, which sometimes enmeshed families don't really have a lot of that, you know, and it's kind of part of the dysfunction, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that a lot of the dysfunction is sort of with this idea of, I love you so much, so I'm going to tell you how to live your life, or I'm going to be really involved in your life. And while people make fun of Chris and being this momager, and, you know, when you watch the show, you do get the sense that they are making, you know, she is allowing these people to make their own decisions, and allowing them to, you know, choose the things that they want to do and the people that they want to do it with, and, you know, who their partners are and all of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's functionally you know, it's not very fun. It's functionally dysfunctional.
Right.
And in many ways, all families are a bit of that, for
right.
sure. So we really want to talk about, I do want to talk about the history if we go back to the beginning of the Kardashians, but let's first talk about some of the themes that we saw in the first season, because there were definitely, you know, obviously they follow each of the kids and each of the Jenner and Kardashian girls, but you're also seeing some overarching themes. And the first one I want to dig into was the Kim-Kanye relationship, because again, I, like most people, had been watching their relationship on the sidelines. I realized from watching the show that I don't think I'd ever really seen him talk. And
Yeah.
he's a little quirky. I know people love
awkward,
Kanye,
yeah.
but he was a little awkward on the show. So I realized I'd never really, because you either see him performing and singing, rapping, or you see him ranting on some show,
Right.
and you never sort of see him
reading his tweets.
yeah. Or, you know, so that was my first introduction to getting to know him and sort of seeing how he is. And it is weird. The way, and I know obviously this is them post-divorce, so we're seeing this relationship, but you usually can see some sort of spark between
Right.
partners. And I was like, God, why don't I see
I feel
something
it feels
between the two of them?
Yeah, it feels very transactional to me, their relationship from the beginning. And I know that he had been pursuing her, or they had been friends before, and, you know, I think he probably had pursued her before, and I don't think she was that attracted to him, because I don't know where I saw this, but something that I saw her giving an interview, and she did talk about this, that she was friends with him, but she didn't really feel that spark with him. Mm-hmm. But he clearly had, you know, wanted to be more than friends. And then she claims that, you know, after her divorce from Kris Humphries, suddenly she just said, okay, you know. Well, I think she even admitted that she, you know, she wanted to be married, and she wanted to do this, and
she wanted to have children. It sounded
right.
like.
And I think she made it sound like she suddenly was attracted to him. I don't know how much I really believe that. I feel like she just thought, you know what, this is a really good person to marry and have kids with, and it's turned out very well for her and her whole family.
Yes. Well, you know what's interesting is if you go back to that time where she married Kris Humphries, right, and that whole thing, and I never, again, I didn't watch the show then, but I do remember seeing a scene or two of her with Kris Humphries, and you could see the disaster. I think everyone could see that was like the Titanic into the iceberg with that relationship and marriage. But you know that she was already pregnant with North when she divorced Kris Humphries. Remember, North was born. So by the time
the divorce was finalized
with Kris, because so that marriage lasted like
73 days.
73 days. Yeah. And then I think it was pretty quickly she was with Kanye, and then pregnant.
Right.
And then had North, and then
they got married.
Then her divorce with Kris Humphries was finalized, And then they had that big Italian wedding. So
I think it was in France.
Oh, it was? Okay. Well, anyway, I think maybe I'm getting the other Kardashian.
Yeah,
that was
the other
Italy.
one. Yeah.
I feel like Kim's was in Italy. Someone come at me because I feel like I'll look that up later. But so it's interesting that you said that because, you know, one of the things that they get accused of a lot is being so calculating. And so you feel like it was very calculated, that picking Kanye was calculated, or do you feel like she realized pretty quickly that the Chris Humphries thing was not going to work out, and that she just kind of looked around and was like, okay, this guy, you know, this guy is this musical genius and he's beloved. I think I can I can be attracted to him for that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how calculated it was on her part, but I definitely, I don't know. I don't think that you are, you know, you don't just come out of the friend zone. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, she'd already decided she wasn't attracted to him. And I just think it's pretty rare that all of a sudden you just become attracted to somebody. I think she thought, like you said, that, I think I'll try to make this work. You know, maybe she thought she would become attracted to him more. You just, even when you saw them together, they have zero chemistry.
Yeah. They really don't get a vibe at all.
Yeah. And their whole relationship really was about making appearances, you know, media coverage, he just brought so much attention to her, elevated her.
Legitimized her.
It legitimized her. I mean, they're hanging out with Beyonce and Jay-Z. I mean, she went from, you really got to think about, like, not to, why can't I speak? I don't know. Right before this, she was, you know, they had the TV show and whatever, but she was still considered a joke.
Yeah, no, she was very much, when she married Chris Humphries, she was a reality star. Right. She was kind of a joke. She was a joke to the tabloids, and you know, she was still in that. I mean, they had been gaining notoriety because the TV show had been on for a while, but her businesses were kind of like, I can't think of a damn one.
She had like a fragrance.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were nothing like what she is now. And that just elevated her and rubbed off on the entire family.
Yeah. And so obviously what was so interesting is a big theme that happens in this first season is that she's freaked out about dressing, like putting on clothes and getting dressed and feeling confident about what she's wearing. And I was very surprised to hear how much she seemed to be excited that she got these opportunities, like the SNL opportunity, and then she's on the cover of Vogue, and then she's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and she kept talking about like how amazing all of these things were and how scared she was to dress herself. And you're just thinking to yourself, like, my God, this guy must have, a la Elvis, must have been controlling and controlled everything that she wore. And I mean, you know, we both love Heather McDonald and Juicy Scoop, and Heather McDonald's talked all about all those years when all Kim wore were giant jackets and little biker shorts and like tan biker shorts, and that was obviously Kanye's influence, but it was just it seemed to I didn't realize how much all of this got to her, the way in which she talked about it. And I think one of the themes that we see is that this is all about her kind of coming into her own, being 40 and coming into her own. And it is really interesting because I never paid attention to any of this. But she said something very interesting somewhere around episode 6 or 7 when Kanye starts slamming her and starts making fun of, you know, which is just, again, so awful. And the fact that we are okay with this, with him publicly humiliating his ex-wife and being okay with this, that's another story. But what she was talking about was, she says something and she's the reality star, right? Like, she says something about him or comments on their marriage and people dismiss it and like, oh, she's just a reality star. What does she know? But Kanye says something about her, some mean, cruel comment about her, but he puts it in a song. So he's a genius.
He's an artist.
He's an artist. He's a genius. And a lot of, you know, it sounds like he's just been to be with someone who's bipolar is really difficult. If their bipolar partner is taking their medication, they should be okay. They should be able to manage it. But if you have a bipolar partner who is constantly going off the meds and coming, getting back on the meds and saying, I don't need the meds anymore, and all of that, that's a real problem, because there's a lot of mental health issues that you can deal with without medication. But bipolar is one where you have to take your meds. Right. Like, that is a baseline. Like, taking your meds is the basic thing that you need to do. And so my guess would be that she also probably didn't expect this relationship to be as difficult and complicated as it truly was.
And he was probably on his best behavior in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been given a pass for a long time. I mean, he was basically threatening to kill Pete Davidson in these songs and tweets and whatever. I mean, that's behavior that will get you, get you in jail.
Yeah.
Get a restraining order against you. I mean, and he suffered no consequences.
Yeah. No, he's a genius.
The artist, the genius.
He's an artist. He's a genius. So we can't possibly, put him to task. But
and she has such a image and a brand to protect that she had to keep silent about all of this. Yeah. She had to try to hide it and sweep it under the rug. And there's I don't remember which episode it was, but remember the episode where she invites her family over to dinner, and she basically apologizes to them for what they've had to endure from Kanye. Because he would talk smack about whoever. He would get upset and angry, and he said things about Chris. I remember that, and sure, he said stuff about all of them, and he was just a difficult person to be around.
Yeah. So it must be so I can imagine for her it's been very complicated, right? Because her business is being famous, and the fame and what it means, and what she projects out into the world. So a big part of who you are and how you are special and famous in the world is this guy, but he's also at the same time, he's the father of your children, but he's also really difficult. And, it sounds like it is really, really, it's been a tough decade for her dealing with him. And I think in the back of my mind, I always thought that, but didn't really have a lot of empathy. And I think that's one of the things about the show is it really helps you have a lot of empathy for them when you hear them talking about all these things. I think the attitude that a lot of people take of, well, they love it all and they've created all of this, and, this is all this thing that they've calculated. I'm like, well, I think a lot of things are calculated, but I don't think the Khloe and Tristan stuff's calculated. No. I don't think the Kim and Kanye stuff is calculated. I think a lot of these things are just
there's only so much you can control.
Yeah. And what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that this Hulu series is much better than the other one.
Oh yeah, style-wise.
Yeah,
it's spent so much money on it.
It's much nicer, but also I just feel like it's more honest. The episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, a lot of times I felt like they weren't talking about. We would see stuff happening in the news, but they're not talking about it on the show. And they're doing a lot of silly stuff like playing pranks on each other. But now they're really they're talking about it all,
Yeah, well, it's actually, I think it's good. I mean, I do think that TV is a lot better when there's only 10 episodes. I think people forget that these people had to, they had 20 seasons, and they had to make up 23 episodes.
It's a lot of time to fill.
It's a lot of time to fill. I don't care who you are. Nobody's that interesting.
Yeah.
And so now with these 10 episodes, I think they're getting down to the nitty gritty. I don't think we're seeing everything, but I think that we're seeing maybe a bit more honesty.
Yeah.
So I also, do you have anything else for the Kim Kanye relationship?
No.
Get back to that.
No.
But I also want to talk about Courtney and Travis. Now, I know Courtney is hated by a lot of people.
Travis, for sure.
Travis. So a lot of people have a lot of feelings about Courtney. She's not the sister I would hang out with. She's not the one I would pick, but I don't think she's terrible. But I'm sorry, this excessive PDA really, really gets under my skin. It really does. It's to the point where I had to do some research on excessive PDA and what does it mean.
It's to the point where her children are saying, Mom, stop, no kissing, no tongue, stop kissing. And they're saying this to her, and she just keeps doing it.
Yeah.
She's just kind of giggling, and it's strange.
Well, and also, I mean, in episode 1 or 2, they go see this house. They go into the backyard, and basically she's straddling him on a bench in a stranger's home. And this poor real estate guy comes wandering out to see what's going on. And their attitude, or Travis's attitude, was very much this, well, he's here to sell us this home, and what does it matter to them?
But you're dry humping in front of the outdoor fire pit.
Yes, and nobody wants to see that.
No.
But the thing is that it's really interesting, because I did some research, and there is no, like, there's 90 opinions on PDA, right? And everyone always says that, you know, what motivates PDA, and is it that you're trying to prove to the world that your relationship's really wonderful, and so you're putting all this PDA on display and lots of pictures of the two of you kissing, and I'm going to put this on Instagram or that, or is it like a normal, healthy way of showing that you love this person? And so I read somewhere that someone said, okay, part of it had to do with how you were raised. Like, your level of comfort on PDA has to do with your own parents and how much they were affectionate towards each other, you know, that kind of thing. But to me, I feel like it doesn't really matter what you saw growing up. I think that you are an adult in the world, and what you do and how your energy and how you enter a room, and that stuff matters. And we have a lot of control over that. Like, our intentions, like, you know, do we walk into a room in a bad mood and sort of put that bad mood out to everybody else? Like, do you walk in the room, like, trying to put on a happy face or to be calm? You know, what is that? As an adult, we have a lot of control over, we can control our emotions. We can control how we show up to other people in the world. And I do think that there is something really selfish and kind of, I don't know what the word is, just really narcissistic about the fact that you feel like dry humping in some stranger's home is okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a part of me that just kind of feels like I understand that their attitude has always been like, oh, we're just showing each other love, and shouldn't we be showing each other love when we're showing our kids that we love each other? And I'm like, but it's one thing to have a couple pecks on the cheek or to hug or to do something.
Grabbing her ass constantly, tongue kissing. People are trying to talk to them, have a conversation with them, and they just won't stop tongue kissing. Well, and also, this seems to be a Travis thing, because Courtney wasn't like this before, you know, and we know from scenes from the Keeping Up with the Barkers, which was Travis's previous reality show with his first wife, he was like that with her. Mm-hmm. So this is his thing. Yeah. That he's brought into the relationship, and she is going along with it. And I'm not quite sure why. Because
I think she thinks this is... I do think that they're very much in love. I think they're happy together. I think they're happy they found each other. But I think that she thinks that this is what he wants and that this is what she's going to do. Or maybe that she's always wanted this and this is her dream. And so finally this guy wants to stick his tongue down your throat. But the thing is that even just the, oh, baby, what do you want? Oh, I don't know. What are you going to have, sake? Oh, no, you could have red wine. I'll have red wine.
Oh, whatever my baby wants. I want whatever my baby wants.
It's very, I mean, these are 40-year-olds.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
It's Travis Barker, he's got to be 50.
I don't know.
Almost 50.
Maybe almost.
Late
these
40s.
are people in their late 40s, for prime sakes. Right. She's what, 42, 43,
exactly.
But I mean, but again, 40-year-olds, like they're acting like teenagers.
I didn't even do that stuff when I was a teenager. No. That's too much.
No,
nobody wants it.
Nobody wants this. I'm sorry. Here's a little public service announcement. Nobody likes it. Nobody wants it.
And especially your children, it makes them very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Or your parents.
Exactly.
I mean, Chris is sitting there the whole season. She's going, I just want to spend time with my kids. And then she's spending time with these two, and she's like, oh my God, get a room. Like, Chris, who's desperate to do anything with her children, doesn't even want to spend time with these two because they're making her crazy.
Yeah, it's weird. I hope season 2, they tone it down?
I don't know. I just think that it's a very kind of like a very showy, look at me, look at me, look at me. And if you criticize it, then you're some old fuddy-duddy who doesn't believe in love. And it's like, no. That's not, no.
Yeah.
That's not how life works. Like,
maybe she's having a reaction to, because her relationship with Scott was, I don't want to say, I don't know how to even explain their relationship, but it was, I mean, she basically was kind of staying with this guy for the sake of her kids and trying to make it work, but not really trying to make it work. And now she's finally really, truly in love.
Which I think is great.
That's wonderful.
It's
but
great.
She's kind of going overboard with the...
Well, let's talk about Scott and the family, because, I always knew about Scott. And, they don't really come out and say it, but it is alluded to that... I'm sorry. Choking here. It's alluded that he was obviously cheating on her. Like, it's sort of, they don't say it outright, but
I think it has been said outright.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, but it's sort of said subtly, not so subtly.
He had substance abuse issues.
That he had the substance abuse problem, that he cheated on her, that he was a terrible partner, that he was all of these things. And Scott, this entire season, his big thing is, are you guys replacing me? What's wrong? Oh, you told me I was part of the family, and kind of putting these people in a real crappy position personally, because Chris, sees you like a child, sees you like a son, they see you like a brother, but my issue with Scott is that it would be one thing if he was coming around saying, I've worked on myself, and because what he's sort of saying is, I'm worked on myself, I'm in a better place, I've hurt Courtney, I know that, but I want to be part of this family and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but you haven't really grown as a human being. Your last two relationships were with 18, 19-year-olds.
And the last one was not that long ago.
And if you were really in a healthy, happy place, then you wouldn't be trying to triangulate and trying to create trauma and drama with your kid's mom's family.
Yeah, I kind of wondered how much of this storyline of his was played up as a storyline. You know what I mean? I kind of didn't buy his like, oh, so does this mean I'm not going to get invited to anybody's birthday party? And, his whole thing... I kind of think there was a little fakery going on there. Because, like you said, he had 2 long-term relationships, not, in the very recent past. He understands what's happening here.
Yeah.
He acts like he's like, wow, what's happening? No, Scott, you understand what's happening. And when you were dating that 19-year-old for, 2 or 3 years or however long it was, everybody had to make concessions and be, things were different. I mean, come on. I don't buy a lot of
that.
it.
You don't think that he's upset that he's not being invited to something because Travis is there?
I'm sure he is, but I think he understands it, but he's just acting like he doesn't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Of course he's a little bit upset. And you know what? I don't think that Travis or Courtney really care that he's at certain things or not. I just felt like that was a little like, we have to give Scott a storyline. Like, what are we going to do with him?
I do think that Courtney and Travis, I think that they do feel like it's better when he's not around. I think it is easier if he wasn't there. I think that, I think that's a very normal, natural thing to feel like a little uncomfortable if you have your last partner and this new person here, especially if he's sticking his tongue down your throat all the time. But also Scott, he makes these really inappropriate comments to Chloe, like, "You're my sister, but boy, do you look hot now." So that's the thing. It's this weird dichotomy where he's like, "I'm your brother, I'm your son, I'm your this, I'm your that, but I'm going to say really inappropriate things to you that no brother is going to think or say." at the same time, and it's this weird feeling a little bit of, I swear to God, I think that if Chloe gave him any interest, he'd be like, okay, let's do this.
I think he would.
I think he'd jump right on that, because I think that he, he doesn't want to go get a job. Why would Scott want to possibly go and get an actual job? The man's has he ever worked? I mean...
Yeah, I don't understand his finances.
No, but I think he
seems to have a lot of money.
But he has it from
his parents.
No, but I think it's also probably, right, he's probably made money from the show, but I think he does a lot of club appearances. I think he does a lot. That was the whole thing. I remember hearing about this where, because he did all these club appearances, but he was trying not to drink, but the problem is he's in these atmospheres where... And, when you have money, it's very easy to continue to make money, right? Like, and you just invest in the right things, and then your money just multiplies and so on. So, but I find him really, I've never found him appealing. I don't understand what's so great about him. I really don't.
Sometimes he can be funny, but for the most part, I just, his storyline is kind of played out, but they'll keep him around. I guess we'll see what they're going to do next season with him.
Yeah. And then the last the last sort of theme that I saw was, poor Chloe. God, Chloe, and this whole thing. I mean, that was, I'm sorry, but, from episode 9 into episode 10, where everything really starts coming out, and then Kim has to turn and tell Chloe what is going on, like what was just released about him fathering this other child. And those tears, that was heartbreaking. I mean, however you feel about the Kardashians or Chloe or any of that, that was heartbreaking, listening to her cry and sob.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. It was horrible to watch the whole season, her talking about how she and Tristan were such good friends and they were such good co-parents, and now we're back together and we've been going to counseling, and just every week you're like, oh, God, it is. And the guy, this was my favorite line of the entire season, was when those phone calls were happening back and forth. Like, first Kim called Kylie, I believe, and she told her what had happened. And Kylie says, oh, is Tristan just like the worst person on the planet? And I was like, yeah, Kylie, he is. Yeah, I mean, what? So another part of me is kind of like, why? This guy he's done so many things. Mm-hmm. He just is kind of creepy. He gives off a creepy vibe, I think. I don't know. It's
I don't get it. He doesn't seem very charming. He doesn't seem very interesting. He seems very blah.
Yeah.
And so I really don't get it. But obviously she really loves him. I mean, she really loves and cares about him and wants to be with him. But she hangs on to people too long, Mm-hmm. I mean, like the whole thing with Lamar, like Chloe has this inability to sometimes, I think, to see people for who they are. She just wants to save people and help people, and it shows too, like how friendly she is with Scott. Yeah.
And I felt a lot of times kind of took Scott's side over her sister. So yeah, Chloe, she needs to just focus on herself and her children.
Well, but the thing is that she, the first half of the season is really about her anxiety, about the scrutiny that she's under, about what people think of her, about her. And, I have to say, I will say that if Kim was my sister, I too would be feeling like Chloe. Yeah. Because Kim really is, I mean, I'm sorry, you cannot take your eyes off of her.
She's stunning.
She is so stunning. With makeup, without makeup. Right. In gym clothes, in fancy clothes, like just utterly stunning, stunning, stunning. And I think that, to be in this family where you're the one you're the quote unquote fat one, or you're quote unquote the ugly one, or you're the one that was adopted. Yeah. And I mean, I think that all of that has been just, some people have the stomach for all this. And, that's the thing about the entertainment business is there's the actual, being able to do this job and be an entertainer. And then there's all of the awful scrutiny. And trust me, there's a lot of people who it's so difficult and it's so hard. And we all feel it. We all feel it with Instagram. We all feel it with, social media and what's going on in the world in today, and nobody likes your photo or someone calls you fat. It's awful. And so she is on such this huge level, and probably this is not what she was supposed to be doing with her life. It's where she is, but you just feel for her.
But she kept saying over and over again, when she was talking about how when she went on the James Corden show, and then there's something else she was doing. She's like
doing Ellen.
She kept talking about how, she loves doing these appearances, but it's so hard afterwards having to read what everyone says about her. And it's like, girl, why are you reading what people are saying about you? Literally, you should not be looking at social media at all. Don't you have an assistant who can filter through the comments and just show you the good ones? What? Why is she even... Look, people say horrible, nasty things about Kim. And, of course, which are not true. And so what?
Yeah.
Like, Kim obviously doesn't let it get to her at all. I'm sure she probably doesn't even look at it. Yeah, why are you paying attention to that?
Yeah. I don't know. Though, I think, that because Kim was also, why was she so worried about the dressing herself? Like, she definitely, I think that there was a feeling of what are people going to think of me without Kanye? Am I going to... Because I think her fear was, am I going to go back to being the reality show person? Am I the reality star? Am I going to lose my credibility? Am I going to lose everything? And if he was really instrumental in helping her with Skims and all of these things, then I can understand. I can understand her fears around, what could potentially happen. But... yeah, I don't know why. I have someone who helps me with my social media for my business.
Yeah,
and I never look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I rarely post stuff, but if I do, I don't look at it. But not like my friends are going to say anything nasty. I don't know why I'm comparing myself to a celebrity. But anyway,
but yeah, why don't we get into some of that, because you have a bunch of history here.
Well, this kind of goes with one of the themes of the season that I was interested in. And this has a lot to do with Chloe, too, as well, because she kept saying over and over again throughout the entire season about how their family is just, such an inclusive, blended family, and they've been blending families for years, and that her parents were good friends after their divorce, and that Caitlyn and her father played golf together. She kept saying these things, and something in me was like, I don't think that's true. And it's really not. We talked about these kids, the Kardashian kids, they suffered a lot of trauma.
You've been through a lot.
They have been through a lot. And maybe people would have more empathy for them if they really thought about it. But anyway, the Robert Kardashian and Kris Kardashian were divorced in 1991. I think they'd been separated for a couple of years, but it was finalized in 1991. And these children were young. So, like in 1991, Kourtney was 12.
Kim was 11.
So she was probably even younger when they separated.
Kim was born in 1980, which makes math really easy.
God.
So I always go back to what she was.
Right.
And then you piece the other
family they're just together. 1 year. They're just 1 year apart. And then Chloe's 4 years. Yeah, 4 years younger. So she was like 7. Rob was like 4, which means he was like 2 when they separated. Okay, so they separated because Robert Kardashian caught Kris cheating. And their divorce was very contentious. I read some excerpts from the divorce papers, and he accused her of a lot of stuff. Accused her of, spending a lot of money, of drinking and partying, not taking care of the kids, the affair she was having. So Kris met Caitlyn pretty soon after, and at that point, when she met her, she apparently was broke. Caitlyn was in debt, had no money, and she moved into the Kardashian home in Beverly Hills. Robert had moved out and was living with his mother, and Caitlyn moved in with her 4 children. So all of this is happening in the Kardashian kids' home. It was very, very chaotic. And then that was actually Chris's first project, was turning Caitlyn's career around.
Yeah, so it was Chris who went to Caitlyn and said, you need to put together a talk, you need to write a book, you need to be an inspirational speaker, because she couldn't figure out how to monetize being an Olympian.
And she was going through a lot personally. Prior to them meeting, she started to transition. And she was taking hormones, and I don't know if she decided before or after she met Chris to stop that process, but she stopped. But anyway, it was very chaotic, and then just a couple years later was the O.J. Simpson, the murder of Nicole and Ron Goldman.
Because you talked about this, how there's a lot of resentment between Courtney. There's a lot of resentment between Courtney and Chris, because Courtney knew about the affair, and Courtney, I guess, apparently knew that she had cheated, and she was the one who broke up the marriage, and then she went to go live with her dad, right?
Well, no, she was really young when all that happened. Courtney kind of sided. She was very resentful towards Chris because she blamed Chris for breaking up her family.
Yeah,
and she sided with her father, and she lived with him, I think, all through high school, and you can still see, we can talk about this more later, but you can still see to this day, like, you know, I think she still has resentment towards her mother. But yeah, so then these murders happen, and Chris is very good friends with Nicole, and of course, Robert is very good friends with OJ. They were very close. He was the best man at their wedding, and so then that divides the family into, you know, whose side are we on? And that was very chaotic. And then
plus someone in your life gets murdered. I mean, number one, right?
Right, that's such a strange,
like a family friend gets murdered, and then I don't know if the OJ and Nicole's kids were friendly with them or not, but like, how bizarre is that? Like,
they went on vacations together. They were kind of the same age, because Rob would have been like around 8 years old, and I think that was like, her kids were like 6 and 7 or 7 and 8, 8 and 9, something like that.
That's right, because he had older kids from his first marriage.
Yeah, right. The younger kids, they were the same age. I mean, that was very, very, very traumatic. And then Robert Kardashian dies in 2003 very suddenly. He's diagnosed with cancer, and he died 8 weeks later.
Wow.
So they had a lot of trauma, a lot of, and then it's so, I don't know. It's the way that Khloe describes this blending of the Kardashian and the Jenners, it just doesn't ring true to me. And I feel like it probably took them a long time to warm up to Bruce. And now they don't really seem to have a relationship with Caitlyn at all.
Yeah, I remember there were all those specials when Caitlyn made the transition, and there were lots of specials about that, and you would see all of these scenes where they go and they talk. It seemed like each sibling had to go, and because each sibling had a different relationship with him that became her. And so I remember all of that, but I don't think Caitlyn's a warm, fun person. Like, I don't think, my guess would be is I don't think Caitlyn goes out of her way to, see her grandchildren or see her children, right? I just don't get the vibe that she comes down from that mountain house of hers in Malibu and, decides to come and see the family as much.
Well, also, the Kardashians they've obviously sided with their mother, which is natural.
Yeah.
And Chris is not like in a good place with Caitlyn. I think she's very,
rightly so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, again, I think a lot of people have a lot of feelings about Chris, but that's a very difficult thing to go through publicly.
Yeah.
I know someone not that well who went through it, and I think it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so I just think that that's just this myth, that they're just all this one big happy family, and even after people break up, we just continue to, act like everything is fine, and it's just, It's just not. But that was consistent with what Chloe was saying all throughout the whole season about how she and Tristan are just best friends and they're great co-parents. And I mean, she really was.
I think she was trying to convince herself.
She was going through a lot of mental gymnastics to convince herself, oh, well, my other people in my family have done this and I can do this. And it's like, no, this is not.
Yeah.
This is not. It's a revisionist history, a lot of it.
Yes.
Definitely. So.
But they've had this very strange, because obviously they were, born into privilege and they've been around famous people their entire lives. And they've had certain advantages for sure. But at the same time, you told me this earlier, and I didn't realize this, that when their father died, they got no money from him at all. So they really, I think that they were in these circles, but I think that they had to work. I think that in the beginning, they needed to find businesses and things to do to make money. And which is why when Kim made that comment about, what should young people do today to become successful? And she said, get off your ass and work. I think it was because she did that. And you have to give her some credit for the fact that we were talking about this earlier, right? That Kim and Chris, created this. Yeah. And they have been the driving forces of making this happen, making this family what it is, making Kim a billionaire. Like, she definitely, obviously is incredibly hardworking and, feels like, and I think what she was saying with that comment, as much as she got all this backlash, is that we live in this world where everyone thinks like, okay, I'm going to grow out my long dark hair and I'm going to iron it down. And then I'm going to get in booty shorts. Yeah. And then I'm going to, do this and I'm going to pose and I'm going to get on I'm going to put on a bikini and pose here and I'm going to be Kim Kardashian. And that's, that's all it takes to do that. And what she was really trying to say is it's more than that.
Yeah. They've all been working very hard. I mean, Chris kind of had to start hustling, after the divorce. I mean, I don't know how wealthy Robert Kardashian really was. I'm not really sure, but
I think he's a well-connected attorney in LA. I think he probably did well.
He actually, I think, made most of his money. I was reading he got into some early tech deal that really paid off or something. But, most lawyers, I mean, I've heard people say he was an entertainment lawyer. I don't know what he did as a lawyer. I think he was more of a kind of a hustler too. Yeah. But anyway, Chris had to hustle. She had to provide for her kids, and they all started working, as teenagers, and they had their stores and their businesses, and you can't deny that. And if Kim was not Chris's daughter, none of this would have ever happened. The two of them together, it was required that the two of them, work together to create this. The other characters around them are really ancillary. Yeah.
I mean, Courtney could take it or leave it. I don't know. I follow her. I follow that Poosh on Instagram. You don't get a real sense of love. Like when you know how you look at someone's Instagram or you look at someone's business and you're like, oh, this person really loves this. Like there's something very disconnected about her and everything
does she sell things? Or
so
what?
I don't understand.
Is it?
So Poosh is like a Goop, and we saw on this season where she meets with Gwyneth Paltrow.
I don't really even know what Goop does.
I barely understand what Goop does. And I'm really, really sick of, and I understand it that people see Gwyneth Paltrow now as a businesswoman, but Gwyneth Paltrow also is incredibly privileged and,
wealthy
actress. And, she had money and funding to do this business and the name. So I'm just kind of sick of these people that act like...
Isn't Steven Spielberg her godfather or something?
Yes. But it's a little bit like when you're already Gwyneth Paltrow and you start Goop, of course, like you've started on the third base. Right. So anyway, but it is, I think it's a little bit like Goop. I think she sells things like candles. You saw her sniffing candles, I think she sells stuff and it's sort of this lifestyle. And I think the people who subscribe and are into Goop want to be Gwyneth Paltrow. And I think these are the people who want to be like a Kardashian or something like that. But it feels like Kourtney, which is just kind of half there and half not there. you know,
Yeah.
and that's what you feel about Courtney. Speaking of lawyers, because I do know you want to talk about this, is that Kim is not a lawyer.
Yes, contrary to what she says on the show.
And what her mother says on the show.
Yes, not only is she not a lawyer, she's not in law school.
Brooke is very irritated.
Yes,
and I could understand.
This is my pet peeve. I'm sorry. And I think every other lawyer out there is with me on this one. Actually going to law school is very different from basically having a tutor
come to your house
and teach you the law. And the baby bar is not the bar. That's another thing she kept saying. Now that I've passed the bar.
It's like, no, that was the baby bar.
Yeah. So look, I don't want to hate on her. I think that it's, you know, admirable that she wants to do this.
Yeah, I think this is the most interesting thing about her.
Yeah, that she's
this work.
That she's even taking it on. I'm this work that she did, you know, bringing attention to these death row inmates. You know, however you can do it, that's great. And she doesn't even need to be a lawyer to do that.
Yeah,
you know, she can just use her celebrity to do that. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she actually goes on to, you know, finish her studies and take the actual California bar exam and become a lawyer.
Yeah. Which would be fine. And I think that if she you know, I think that, yes, she didn't need to do any of this. I think she got interested in it. I think this is her personality. I think she's someone who jumps in and decides, okay, I'm going to do this, and here I go. But no, it was, you know, I don't know. I've heard the baby bar is hard. I don't know if but it can't be as hard as the actual bar.
Well, it's only the subjects that you would learn in your first year.
Oh,
so
okay.
There's just a few subjects. The real bar is a lot more, and it's
everything else,
and it's longer and harder, I guess.
But yeah, and the Pete Davidson, my girl's a lawyer.
Wow. Well, and I really got upset when after she. This must have been after she got the results from the baby bar, and she was talking about how now that she's been studying contracts, she wanted to do her Balenciaga contract herself.
Yes.
And it's like, okay. I mean, passing the baby bar does not qualify you to do a complex legal contract, you know, that's probably going to be 50 pages. So
yeah. Well, but I think my guess is she probably just read through it and could comment on a few things, and probably much more than these other people's, you know, clients can do. But anywho, they are, I have to say, I'm hooked. I'm really looking forward to the next season. You know, I mean, I sometimes think like, oh, should I go back and watch the old episodes? But then I really think about what that would entail, and I'm like, no.
I don't think it's necessary.
Maybe I'll watch some of these other shows or something, you know, some other things around them. But it is really fascinating that even if you don't even try to pay attention to them, it's impossible not to. Like, if you follow pop culture in any way, shape, or form, you cannot not follow these people. You cannot not, you know, see what's going on. I mean, when Kim and Pete broke up, like, I think my husband knew that before I did. He's like, oh, they broke up. Like, I'm like, how do you know? And he's just scrolling through, you know, through an Instagram feed.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you think that he broke up with her or she broke up with him?
I don't know. I've heard different things, that maybe like he wasn't into it anymore and he broke up with her. I think that it had run its course. So don't forget, Pete's also got bipolar.
Yeah.
It looks like he takes his medication, but again, bipolars have a history of not taking their medications. Like, people who have bipolar will be bebopping along and feeling really good, and then they'll stop taking their meds, not realizing that they feel things are going well because they are taking their meds. So I do wonder if she started to see a little bit of that.
Shades of
Kanye, and kind of like, oh crap, like, I don't know if I want to do that. You know, when you watch the show, you really get the sense that she like had a spark with him. Like, there was something there. There was like an initial attraction, a spark. I think it was fun. I think it was fun not being with Kanye. And I think that it just ran its course. Like, I think it was, necessarily think that one of them broke up with the other one. I just think that maybe they were just kind of like, okay, this is, this is it.
Yeah, because, he said that he'd been in therapy because of all the harassment from Kanye. He was getting, trauma treatment or something like that. And it's like, that's a lot, I mean, maybe they both just realized that this isn't going to work out long term, and, let's just cut it off here.
Well, yeah, and he's also 20, what is he, late 20s?
28 or something?
He's late 20s, she's 41, 42 this year. She's got 4 kids, and, that was the other thing, was when I was watching all of this, I'm like, and she's off, it seemed like she was with him constantly, like, now they're traveling here, now they're traveling there, now they're here. And it's like, you have 4 kids. Like, when are you with these 4 children that you have? So I also think that she probably didn't have, I think she probably was like, oh God, I'm not spending any time with my kids, or I'm not focusing on these other things.
She's very busy. She has a lot to do. So
she's got a lot to do.
And
he's got a career.
He lives on the East Coast, right? I don't think he has a house in LA, does he?
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that, right, it's very easy for them to rent it or do any of that. But I think that the age difference, and she's a mom and he wants to go off and enjoy his life, and, I don't know.
Well, we haven't talked at all about Kendall and Kylie.
Oh. You know why? Because Kylie...
Well, they're barely in the show.
I know. Kylie seems to be... I mean, I know she's also a billionaire and has her own private jet and all of that, but Kylie seems really out of it. And I don't know if it was because she's pregnant this season, but she just seemed a little, like, she's so soft-spoken, and you're kind of like, are you with us, Kylie? She's
someone who I feel like her growth has stunted. I think she's going to be permanently age 14.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
She looks nothing like... I don't know what she once did. I mean, she have any a lot of them obviously look very different, but she's changed next to Chloe, I think, the most.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how old she is right now. I think
she's like 25. She just had a birthday.
Okay. Because I think she was like 19 when she got pregnant, or when she had her baby, Stormy.
Oh, she's young, yeah.
She became mega famous with the Kylie lip kit and all that kind of stuff. She was probably 16.
Mm-hmm. And that was kind of almost a weird fluke. Do you know what I mean? I think that it was like people thought it was going to be... I mean, even she probably was like, oh, a lip kit, that's a good idea. Because she was known for her lips.
It wasn't even her idea.
Yeah,
it was
but she was known for her lips, and she was known for, having these big lips. And then she came up with this, and I don't think anyone ever expected it to happen for her. And I don't think she even really expected it to happen for her. And she seems to be, she obviously seems like a good mom and seems to love her children. But, at the same time, there is, again, the Kardashian thing of the whole Astro world. And there was all this talk about, like, how all of that was handled. And, it wasn't talked about at all on the show. And
probably for legal reasons, because there's so many lawsuits, wrongful death lawsuits against Travis Scott. But yeah, she just doesn't really seem to care. I think it's like you said, I think it was a fluke that she became a billionaire.
Yes.
And now she's a billionaire. She just seems to be content with that.
Yeah.
She sold I think 51% or something of the Kylie Cosmetics to, I think it was to Revlon.
Oh, wow.
So, she doesn't even have control of it. She just kind of gets the money.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to do anything. And so she's set for life.
Yeah, I mean...
She doesn't have to do anything, and she seems to just be content with just being with her kids. And I don't think she really wants to be on this show. I think she knows that she has to show up for some things, but...
Well, and there was that scene with her and her mom where they went to the grocery store.
And the car wash.
And the car wash. And it was like, oh, this must be shades of the old show. Yeah. But I think what's interesting is that's all they could come up with. Like, she obviously isn't doing things. She doesn't really want to show her kids as much. So, and she's very, very pregnant. And so this is what she and her mom are doing together, is going to the grocery store and getting a car washed. And it's interesting because Chris asked her, like, oh, we're together, we can do anything. And what she wanted to do was go shopping, go to the grocery store.
Right.
And it's like, so you do get the vibe that maybe at some point this wasn't the life that she wanted, that this isn't that she would like to go to the grocery store and do some of these normal things that she can't really do anymore. And Kendall is really, it's so funny. I know that Kylie has done a lot to her face and lips and all of that, but Kendall, they look so different when I look at the two of them, Kendall and Kylie.
Yeah.
They seem, the vibe is different. And Kendall is, to me, feels, again, like one of these people that's like, okay, I'm tall and thin, I should model. And then she's got all these friends like Hailey Bieber, who are also, children of celebrities who decided to model. And it was like, I think it was just the timing of it. This weird timing of things of like, oh, look, the Baldwin kids are modeling and Bella and Gigi Hadid. And then she just kind of jumped on that fast moving car and just kind of was like, okay, now this is what I'm doing. But you don't even get the sense from her that that's really like that she loves modeling.
Right. Like it was kind of a fluke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not like she has all these phobias. I know she has
her crazy
anxiety and like she's afraid to fly, but yet she always had to fly to Europe and, for these modeling things. So it doesn't seem like it was something she chose. Mm-hmm. But she fell into it, and Chris was probably like, you need to do this, you can make all this money. And
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you see on the show, she bought some sort of weird steam thing that she kind of pops out of.
It's like a what do they call it? Hyperbolic chambers type thing. And she comes popping out of it with her laptop.
Yeah.
Like she's just in there watching a Netflix movie.
So, yeah, she obviously, there's something going on there. But the other part of it, too, is these are two young women who, they did not choose any of this. They were on the show when they were young. They were born into it. They were along for the ride. And then their father transitions in a very public way. And that also must affect you and how you see the world and all of that. And yeah, and every single thing you've done since you were a preteen has been talked about. And it's a lot.
It is a lot.
But they're not very, I mean, when you watch the show, I'll be perfectly honest, like the parts that I really loved were the Kim parts.
Yeah.
Like if the show was just Kim and these people were ancillary characters, which it kind of feels like it is, then I'd be fine with that. That's great. Yeah. I want to see Kim I want to see her do Saturday Night Live. I want to see her giant, God, it's like her getting ready area and her clothes, her closet is probably 3 times the size of my house. I mean, it's huge. It's multiple rooms. Like, I want to see her multiple rooms.
I want to see more of their houses.
Yeah.
We only really see Kim's. It's probably not even her real kitchen, but it
looks like a weird.
It looks like a set.
It does.
And Kylie won't even let anyone in her house. We've never been in her house. I don't think, not that I can recall. We've seen her yard, but we haven't seen her house. Obviously, we've seen Chloe and Chris's new houses, and
we've seen
Courtney. I don't. Is Courtney still in? I think she's still in the same house that she's always. But yeah, I guess eventually, maybe we'll see this next season. Her and Travis moving together.
Well, that's a big part. It seems like it's a big part of their lives. Is the constant like, let's buy a house and furnish it. And then, both Chloe and Chris obviously just put together these homes. So I feel like, okay, they're going to live in them for a couple of years and then they're going to want to redo them. I mean, I think when you have that much money, you're constantly just kind of like, ooh, let me redo this. Let me do this. Let me do that. And purchasing other homes and doing all those things there. But,
so what are our predictions for season 2? Well, obviously a lot of it's going to be Courtney's wedding, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll buy a house.
It's going to be her wedding. It's going to be the post Kylie having her baby and we don't know the baby's name, or they changed the baby's name or something like that.
Kim and Pete.
Khloe post poor Tristan, this whole thing.
Geez.
Oh God.
I can't take that anymore.
And gosh, what else? I think Kendall will still be in her hyperbolic chamber. She'll be popping out of that, wanting, trying to like figure out
she's gonna have to
what's going on.
Trying to figure out how to, freeze herself after she dies, like Walt Disney.
Yeah. Well, but it is also interesting. She's the only one without children, and I think that it seems like there's a lot of pressure on her to have kids.
Yeah.
But I also think that she's probably like, I want to live my life. Like, I want to live, I don't need to start having a bunch of kids because my sisters are having a bunch of kids. So
I would like it if they brought Caitlyn in as a character. Mm-hmm. Although, like you said, I don't know how interesting she is.
I don't think she's ever been that interesting.
Yeah.
I think this transition is the most interesting thing.
It is. Yeah, because
about this person. I mean, obviously, and then when she had the transition, we saw the Barbara Walters specials. We saw all that. We saw everything that was interesting about her. Like, that was it,
And she's problematic with political views, ironically.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe there's just nothing there. Nothing to work with.
No. I'll watch Kim go into her closet and pick some stuff out and talk about these things and then drop a little juice about Kanye and then go back. Yeah. That to me, and then the beautiful shots of everything. It's just
I want to see Kim momming more,
Yeah.
I want to see her taking care of her kids, and I want to see the kids, and I guess Kanye doesn't have a problem with
the kids
her showing the kids.
Yeah.
That was probably another delicate balancing act that she had to pull off.
What do you mean?
Well, because he could have easily said,
"Oh, no kids."
You're not allowed to film the kids, and then what is she going to do?
And maybe this is why. Maybe this is why Khloe was spending so much time working with Tristan, because she wanted to have the kid on the show. And maybe this is why Kourtney, all those years with Scott. I mean, it is also possible that they all were like, we need these kids to be on the show. I don't know. Again, I don't know how diabolical and how much of their motivations are based on this is what I really want. Like, I want to keep Tristan around. I want to make this work. Or if it's more like, I gotta make nice with this guy. It would be better if we were together, but also I want him to let me, have True on the show.
Right.
I don't know. I think people that are a bit more cynical think that they're more diabolical and everything's calculated. And I think it's somewhere in between all of that. I think they do think about all these things, but I also think that it is better for them to have these people in their corners.
Yeah, just in general.
In general, it is.
Yes, I have experience with that. It's a walking a tightrope.
Yes. So anyway, boy.
Well, I'm excited.
Yeah, I am. I'm very excited.
I think it premieres September 22nd, I want to say.
Okay.
So we'll be watching and reporting back.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. This has been over an hour. Really, we had so much to say.
Well, yeah, we could go on forever about these people. But
thank you so much for tuning in to the very first episode of the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. I have such a problem with the pop.
Yeah.
Because I want to say pod sometimes.
It's a mouthful.
It is. But thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.